look, Brock Purdy deserves a ton of credit because we've seen a Dolphins offense that was cooking go to their third string quarterback, Skylar Thompson, similar system, and just not have the same level of success. I mean, Skylar hung tough and he did a lot of good things yesterday. We'll get to that game when we get to it. So I'm in this. A lot of my entire weekend is trying to balance out the fact that your entire social media timeline's watching the same game, overreacting to every single thing or whatever. So we're always going to bring our nuance to take to the party here. Brock Purdy's not Joe Montana, Steve Young, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. He's not, and I don't think he's playing like that. But he's not missing the stuff that Kyle's scheming up for him, right? Even just a couple key, some of his tight red zone passes. He actually really made a nice throw that was dropped late in the end zone.
That was his best play of the game.
Best play of the game.
By a mile,
absolutely.
actually.
But there was like little passes, like 3rd and 10, you throw a 5-yarder to Deebo Samuel where he outruns the defense for a first down. Of course, Deebo Samuel's 74-yarder, which completely inflates Brock Purdy's final stat line, was all Deebo Samuel. But my point is, after Brock Purdy looked a little, too much in the moment early on, some overthrows and, missed a few throws early, he settled down, didn't miss a ton of throws after that, and let the offense work. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and it is impressive what they're able to do with the run that you described with McCaffrey, the way you put the defense in a bind with McCaffrey at receiver and Deebo in the backfield. All of it put together is a juggernaut, as you described.
It was a hilarious game for just how badly box score stats can lie about a quarterback, because they lied in both directions. Like that play to Deebo Samuel where it's just like, oh, let's find Deebo, and then he just watch him create a touchdown out of nothing. Like that's almost a nothing play from the quarterback. Yes, he's got to flip his hips and get the ball out of his hands before the unblocked defender, running in his direction makes a play. But that's a pretty low bar to clear for a quarterback. Yes, you have to achieve that. No, it's not particularly difficult. So on the one hand, you've got a play where he doesn't really do anything, turns into an incredible play because Deebo is Deebo. On the other hand, you have him making a genuinely spectacular play, delivering the ball right to the back corner of the end zone, and Brandon Ayuk doesn't come up with it. It's like the box score stats are lying across the board when it comes to Brock Purdy. So, yeah, we're in this weird world where, it's 2023 now, Steve.
It is.
And in 2023, you can only have an extreme take. You can't be anywhere in the middle. So we are duty bound to declare Brock Purdy either the next Tom Brady, because we've seen this tape before, Steve. Way back in 2001, this little-known 6th-round quarterback took complete command of the team. 20 years later, a dynasty was over, So we're watching it happen again. History repeats itself. It's just on a loop. The same thing coming back around time after time after time. We've seen this. Or you have to say, this is all smoke and mirrors. It's all ridiculous. It's going to blow up. Brock Purdy stinks. He was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. The truth is obviously somewhere in the middle. Brock Purdy is an amazing story. The fact that Mr. Irrelevant right now is leading one of the best teams in the NFL and doing so at a minimum at the same kind of level as the incumbent starter in this offense, and I would say fairly arguably playing better, is remarkable. It's insane. And at a very minimum, the 49ers are absolutely live Super Bowl contenders and arguably favorites with Brock Purdy at the quarterback. It's also important to point out that he isn't playing as well as his box score numbers because Kyle Shanahan is a magician. And his offense with Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk and a good offensive line and the scheme that Shanahan runs is a literal cheat code. All of the graphics, they're of the same, genre. The graphics that put Brock Purdy up there with Joe Montana and Steve Young and Tom Brady, and the graphics that put Nick Mullins up there with Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Luck, these are all of the same family. They are all the things that they're the PowerPoint presentation that should get Kyle Shanahan into the Hall of Fame at some point. Someday in, a decade, 2 decades time, somebody is going to be making the argument for Kyle Shanahan to go into the Hall of Fame, and it is simply going to be whatever the equivalent of a PowerPoint presentation is in the year 2045, where some guy is just going to be, gentlemen, a moment of your time, please, and just puts up all these graphics and then sits there, walks off the stage. I'm done. Next. And they're going to go, yep, sold. And Shanahan's in. Like, that's what's happening here.
Man, that was good. Well done.
Thank you.
I don't have much to add. You may have hit everything.
Well, the thing to add is that it isn't as simple as Brock Purdy is being propped up by this ridiculously amazing offense, because he is making some impressive plays that you can definitely make the case Jimmy G wouldn't make. Like the play that he made where I dropped the ball.
The one nobody's going to remember. At the end, the game was over at that point too, but it was his best throw.
But he made a couple that were like that, right? Where he escapes the initial pressure. Okay, admittedly, most of the time this was happening against 3-man rushes where it's not the hardest thing in the world to escape pressure from 3 guys as opposed to 4 or 5. But anyway, he's escaping pressure, he's buying time, he's extending the play and finding what then looks like an easy throw. I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo makes that play. Like when the initial pressure arrives, either he throws the ball away, he does something with it, but he doesn't extend the play long enough to find that extra easy throw that looks great. So Purdy is adding value on top of this cheat code of an offense, which is why they're out stomping people, like putting up 40-odd points instead of 20. You know, there's a reason that the offense is scoring more points with Brock Purdy versus Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't think it's necessarily because, like, overall he's playing lights out, but it's because he's adding 3 plays a game to what's already cooking. And all of a sudden, that does make a difference.
I think some of those plays, too, like the first 2 touchdowns that Purdy threw, I mean, the throws themselves were simple, right? They were very late in the down, check downs to Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey, right? But I actually think that is something Purdy's bringing to the table is patience in this offense. So that's why, like, ready? I say this stuff about Mahomes a lot, where I start by saying Mahomes is great, but there are things that are schemed up. Like there are yards and production that you could say this is Andy Reid. Then there's production that you could say this is Kansas City, this is Travis Kelce, and then there's other plays where it's like this is Mahomes, right? Above and beyond what Kyle Shanahan and his playmakers create, Purdy's adding that little extra bit that maybe Garoppolo hasn't at this point. And I think it's late in the down, and it's some of those pressure those patient plays, right? Where you're either buying a little bit of time for that other receiver to break open, right? So when that first read or second read isn't there, when the scheme doesn't win every single down, right? When the scheme doesn't win, maybe Garoppolo's throwing it away. Maybe he's not buying that extra time, and Purdy's got the patience to just throw what looks like the simplest pass, a check down to Christian McCaffrey, a check down to Elijah Mitchell, which is wide open in the tight red zone for a walk-in touchdown. But maybe Garoppolo doesn't make that play at this point. So,
yeah,
I mean, there are a few extra plays maybe that Purdy's bringing to the table at the moment. But overall, I do think Purdy's level of play is not much higher than Garoppolo's this season.
No, I mean, the McCaffrey touchdown, I think, is a perfect example. Like, that's the kind of play where I think Purdy is adding some value to this offense that I'm not sure Jimmy G would bring to the table. On that particular play, he's working the left side of the field, doesn't love either of the options available to him. Kittle, there's a guy close enough that I think he doesn't love it. Brandon Ayuk kind of loses at press coverage at the line. So decides he doesn't like that, ends up kind of walking his way into some pressure, but then evades that pressure, escapes for long enough, and all of a sudden McCaffrey is released. Nobody's covered him. It's a busted coverage, and he finds him for a touchdown. I don't know that Jimmy G makes that play. Like, at this point in his career, I would guess Jimmy G probably takes a shot at Kittle. It's a 50-50 jump ball at best in the true sense of the word. There's a reasonable chance that play doesn't get made. And this is a difference between him and Brock Purdy, which is why, like, his numbers are mind-blowing, because you have a system that's already putting up crazy numbers, and then he's finding 2, 3, 4 plays a game to bring something extra on top of that. And that's what means insane wins, insane points totals, and him being put on these graphics with Joe Montana and Steve Young and all the rest of it. Like, I was all for this weekend. Almost made me reassess the idea of reclaiming the comparison, because all of a sudden it's Purdy next to these guys. Skylar Thompson took 6 seconds to be compared to Dan Marino on the broadcast.
Last rookie to start.
Yeah. And I'm
Dan Marino for the Dolphins.
Maybe we should just abandon the whole comparison thing and move on.
Yeah, because people can't they can't wrap their head around it, right? They can't understand the nuance to it. But either way, here's the deal with Purdy. He took care of the ball, in part because his misses, when he missed by a mile. Nobody was catching it when he missed the other day. And he settled down. And let me just add the human, I like to add the human element here to it. Purdy, as a 7th rounder, does have a cool, calm demeanor to take over, as you said, this offense that was like everything's there, right? Everything's there. And he could have, he could throw the ball to the defense. He could look like the moment's too big for him. And maybe, you get a little jittery early on in the playoffs, I imagine. But he settled down. And in this entire season, it never looked like the moment was too big for him.